Hi, welcome back to Painting with Aine. So this is our second layer on our Charles Lamb painting, Irish landscape. So the first layer, we sketched out our picture roughly with a paintbrush and lightly as well. And then we put our first layer of paint on, and we did that quite watered down. We're just mapping out where the colours are. So this week we'll probably finish the painting, hopefully, and we're going to not water down our colours as much, and an awful lot of the hard work is done for us, so this is very enjoyable, this second layer. This week we made sure we filled in everywhere with something, some colour. And here we're going to start at the back and at the top again. So we're just going to make up the colours that we did last week, but of course we don't have to sketch it out now, and the colours are there for us, so it's easier to work them out. So the first colour was a little bit of a grey blue. Make it a little bit more blue. So it's that colour. I'm going to add a tiny bit of water, but it's just enough to keep it moving. And add this on. And here on our second layer, I always feel like it's like a spot the difference layer, because you're going to make kind of adjustments on your second layer where you see you've made little mistakes. So we're going to adjust as we go. So I can see that I didn't bring down this blue enough, so I'm going to bring it down another little bit. Now I'm going to move on. So I'm going to change colours. So first I clean my paintbrush on some kitchen roll, then I dip it in here, and then I clean it again, so it's nice and clean. The next colour is sort of a soft yellow. So it's a little bit of yellow, it's got a tiny bit of orange in it, and it's probably too much orange. It's got lots of white, so I'm going to make a new one here. Just add bits of this to it. I'm happy enough with that colour. Yeah, that's a lovely colour now. And let's just make a bit more of that. Add some more white. And I'm kind of going over, I'm bringing this right down to my line. I'm trying to do the brush strokes just straight across the sky. You can see the finish of the second layer is a lot nicer. The first layer is just a wash, really. Okay, so we've done the sky, we've done our second layer in the sky, so we're going to move down to our mountain. A mountain is a little bit darker than this, so we have the colour here already. I'm just going to add a bit more blue to it. And just put this on and drag it down. And again, I'm seeing more detail than I did last week, so I'm adding it where I see it. Last week was just kind of a race to get all the colour down, mapping out different areas, but now I can look at it a little bit more clearly and look at more of the details. And then the white underneath still has blue in it, so I'm just going to drag some white into this blue and bring it up to meet that. So you can see it's going on a lot thicker this week. I'm not adding as much water. Now, people were asking about brush sizes last week. You just use your common sense. All you really need is one big brush and one medium brush and one small brush, or you might even get away with, for the painting like this, a medium brush and a small brush. So for the larger areas, just use the larger brush, and for the smaller areas, use the smaller one. So now we're going to, now we're going to move on to the sandy beach in the background. So this is quite a small area. I think I'm going to use my smaller brush. So I'll just wet it first. Make up the colour, so it's a little bit of orange, it's a little bit of yellow, and it's a bit of yellow ochre, and it's probably a little bit of brown as well in some bits. So this is a lovely warm brown, there's kind of red in that brown. So it's called burnt umber, but if you don't have that colour, just add some red to your brown. Now that's probably a bit too red, so I'm going to add a bit more of this colour to it, and a bit more of this. Tiny bit of white. I think we're kind of there, but then dip it in here again. So I'm just going over what I've gone over already. And again, making it meet the colour above. Bring it all the way up to the line. Could be a little bit too strong. I'm going to add a little bit of white to it. Quite strong colour I made, and it is in the background. And when stuff's in the background, it's usually a little bit faded out. Here, there's kind of some bits are darker and some bits are brighter. So I'm going to add some of the darker bits in here. And then some of the brighter, well, they're actually lighter bits. A bit of yellow and a bit of white to your mixture. And add those in there. So you're breaking it up a little bit. And actually I see a little bit of that under here as well. So I'm just going to add that there as well. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the water. This is, like, you could do it with a smaller brush, but it's just handier. You have to fill in the area quicker with a big brush. And this isn't a huge brush, it's kind of medium to large size. Now, this, remember, is a lot stronger than the mountains or the sky. So it's a lot more of the blue. Now, there's still white in it, but it's stronger. And actually, I remember from last week, there was a little bit of yellow in it as well. It has a kind of a greeny, there's almost a greeny tone in it. So you have to pick up on that by putting in the tiny bit of yellow into it. Another bit. And a little bit more white. So I'm kind of happy with that colour now. And I'm going to just throw it in. So there's the little part in here. No, I don't want to pick up too much of that colour and drag it with me. So hold this bit back. And I'm making my lines nice and crisp this time, whereas they're a bit fuzzy last week. I want to get them lovely and crisp, and I want to get the finish right as well, so I'm dragging my brush straight horizontally once I get the paint down, because of the brush strokes. I want them to be straight across, like water. Still water is always just straight across, like the sky, and the sky is still. I'll move this up a little bit. I'm going to add a bit more blue to this, make a bit more colour, and a bit more of the yellow. more blue. Now, and here, put this on here. And you do it quite slowly to get that line as well, otherwise you start missing little bits and they look like pixels, and that's not good for the finish. It's okay if you know you're going to do another layer, but if you think this might be your last layer, you want this to be your last layer, you want the finish to be right. So this is, now back here there's a little bit of blending happening, but that's never a bad thing, you know, as long as you're not going over the colour completely. A little bit of blending can happen accidentally and it usually works, you know. Now as I'm doing this, I was saying we do spot the difference, and I've worked out that I've left out all of this here from last week, so I'm going to leave a little gap for that so I can fill it in. So this is the kind of thing you do on your first layer. You see, you make a few little mistakes, and then in your second layer you can kind of make them right, you know. So I'm going to fill it in, and this roof kind of comes down here another little bit as well. So I'm still adjusting. And then here I'm going to leave a little space for these where I forgot to put them in. Now, and all the time when I fill in my paint, I then go over it again to drag it straight across so that I get my nice finish. I've missed a couple of bits here again. I'm just going to go over this a little bit to get my finish. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that colour. I'm going to clean this brush and I'm going to move down to my cottages. Kind of the next thing I see are the roofs of the cottages. So I think I'll use my small brush from here on in. Or no, I might use the medium one for these. It's just slightly smaller than the large one. Now, so again, spot the difference. This is too light, but that's because I was using a lot of water, is that? So I'm going to make that a little bit deeper. I made it a little bit too light last week. Now I already have this colour made for the sandy beach in the background. So all I have to do is add a bit of colour to it because it's practically the same colour anyway. And test a bit then and see. And that looks fairly spot on to me. So I'll make another little bit of it. Maybe a little bit more orange. And a bit more of this. And throw this on. Again, bring it right up to the edge so you don't have a gap. And bring it right down. Now I can see little details here. It gets a little bit warmer here. It's a bit more oranger. So I'm going to add a little bit of this, probably a tiny bit of that, and a bit of orange to my mixture for that bit in the corner. And it's those little differences that make your painting kind of jump out. Little colour differences. And there's another little bit of it here. And then we move on to this one, which is kind of like that colour that we used to make those shadows, but it's even a little bit darker. So another little bit of orange, another little bit of your burnt umber. And if you don't have burnt umber, you just use brown and red. And that's that colour. So you can see that matches kind of that colour. And just put this in. And the little one over here, again, it's kind of a mixture of the two. So we have the two colours here. Just use it up and throw it on. Okay, there we go. Lovely. Now, while I have this colour out, again, it's in that little part that I missed. So I'm going to throw it in here. And because that paint is dry, it's not blending with it because that's dry from last week. So that's okay. Throw it in over that blue. Okay, so that's our the thatches on the cottages. So the next colour I think we should move on to maybe is the white of the cottages. So now we're getting into small, I'm just going to clean this, smaller colour blocks. So I'm going to move on to my little small brush. Now all my brushes are kind of square. I much prefer ones with a flat top to them, because then you can get a lovely edge. Whereas the ones with a pointed top, they're nice for blending, but they're quite hard to get sharp lines with. So now here we are, and it's mostly white with a dot of this colour in it. Or you can pull it from over here, just a dot of that in it. And I'm going to put this on and be kind of nice and careful. I always use my finger like a balance for getting details on. You just balance it against something. You can balance it against the edge here or down here, and it just helps for your hand not to shake while you're putting on important details. Now there's a little bit of white along here as well. I'm going to fill that in. Put plenty on your brush. And here, you want that nice and kind of square. And up here as well. Yeah, that's lovely. Now we're going to move on to the shaded parts of the houses. Oh, there's two little lines here as well that I missed. Okay. So you have to kind of be on alert. When you have a colour made, you kind of check and see where else do you need this colour. So that's that one, and that actually really lifts that. That's lovely. Okay, so I can see a little chimney that I've left out as well. So I'm just going to stick that in. This little chimney. And there's a little bit of smoke coming out of it, which is lovely. And that's because the blue is wet, that's going to blend into it. So that's you just do that, and you straight across the brush strokes because that's going, the reflection is in the water, the smoke is going up into the water. So now we're going to move on to our shadows on the houses. So they're basically the same as the water, but with a tiny bit of grey. So tiny bit black with white in a bit. So that's this one. The colour difference is quite subtle, but that's the way it is, you know. The colours are very, it's almost like just two colours in this painting, you know, just different shades and tones in them. Just filling this in. Lovely. Fill in the window highlights. Okay, so we're putting in, this is the light tone. We already put the dark tone in last week, so we're putting in the light tone to get the little angle on the door and the window. This is really what starts making it all come alive and jump out. And there's a tiny little cross on this as well, just to show that it's a window. So we'll be quite really light with that, just suggesting that, you know. And here again, going over these little lines that we have this colour made. It's kind of that grey blue. Let's just fill those in. This line is quite important here as well. So down here, fill that in. There we go. And over here, I've probably made that a little bit too dark, so I'm just going to redo it from last week. So I did it quite dark last week, so I'm going to make it a little bit lighter. We don't want it too dark. So I think that's actually a better colour. So this is our adjusting phase. So when we see things are too dark, we just make them a little bit lighter. Now this colour, now that I've made this colour, I think I'm going to move straight on to the shadows up here at the front, because I think they're very like this, with just a bit more blue and actually a bit of yellow in them to make them that kind of greeny petrol colour. And they need to be a little bit darker as well, you can see that now. And a bit more blue. So I'm going to go over my shadows here. Now I probably have too much paint on my brush. And they're just kind of scattered in, you know, and they're also at the base of these lovely rocks. throwing these in. I'm not being too precise. Throw a few of them in, and down here as well, this lovely dark part down here. Just get that in. So we have our nice shadows in, and there's actually another little shadow over here. Cat's on the table.
We have 2 minutes.
Okay, so we have our shadows in, and I can see there's another one here. It's a bit greenier over here, so I'm going to throw that in as well. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the walls, and we'll get the rocks done, and then we'll get that green down, that lovely green. Now I missed out a little bit of the front. You'll probably sketch it out better at home. I missed out a bit of this lovely detail at the front, but you'll probably do great. You know, you're good at sketching. So I'm just cleaning my brush, which is kind of the colour that we had for Thatch Cottages and for the house. Just lots of white in with it. It's kind of peachy colour, it's lovely. So I'm going to put these in. That's a bit too strong. I'm going to add a bit more white. I'll make a new thing of it here, a bit more white. And yeah, that's a better colour. So it's not quite as pale as the houses, but it's not as strong as the Thatch Cottages. So it's kind of an in-between colour, in between the two. I'm going to add a bit more white to make up more of that colour. Throw it in here. Lovely. Throw it in at the front. It has a kind of touch of that colour in it at the front. And throw that in there. Make it even brighter, add more white, more pale. Okay, so we're just continuing with the wall here, and just bring it right up. We can add more paint, get a bit more chunky with your paint towards the front of your painting. This is the time to add texture. If you're adding texture to your painting, only do it at the front. Don't be adding texture at the back. Well, some people do, but I wouldn't, you know, I prefer not to do that. And then there's that pale blue. This is kind of drying on me here. I'm just going to add a little bit of this blue to this colour. There's that lovely pale blue underneath. And it kind of blends in a little bit. A bit more of this to it. And that one colour going to the other a little bit. And here, these little blue bits are almost white, they're quite pale. And then I see this colour on the rocks as well, so I'm going to just fill it in here and here. And some here as well. Okay, so lastly, we're going to make that lovely green again, which is just a little bit of yellow, a dot of blue, and remember that made it a little bit acidic, so we're going to add some white, okay? So, yeah, I like this colour. I'm going to add a tiny bit more yellow. And this time we can lay it on quite thick, you know. We're at the front of our painting, so we can go a bit kind of nearly abstract with it, just kind of seeing where the colours are and throwing it in where you see the colour. I'm going to add a bit more yellow, a tiny bit more blue. And see here it's lovely and pale, and here it's getting a bit more green. So it's lovely and pale here. Now I'm going to run out of space on this, but you probably have drawn this better than I have. So I'm usually good at sketching them out, but I don't know what happened to me. Maybe I was too nervous. And then there's a darker, there's a kind of a green over here as well. It's got a tiny bit of the yellow ochre in it. And it's okay. So we're just about finished. So so at the end of every painting, I just kind of have a quick look over and see, have I missed any bits? Could I improve on any bits? So I'm just going to go through this now. So I can see that these mountains, there could be a little bit more white. This is kind of my last bits of adjustment, and it's usually is kind of adding white to things. So these could be a little bit brighter. So I'm just going to add a little bit of my white down here. And this is also adding a little bit of texture, just another layer. And I think those downward strokes are quite important, so that's why I'm putting those in as well. And here, this could be a little bit brighter. Now, the water could be broken up a little bit. I can see there's some kind of stripes going across on it. So I'm going to make those a little bit brighter, some bits on the water. And they've got a little bit of a greeny tinge to them. So I'm just going to break up the water a little bit by adding a couple of little. Now the water is still wet, so these will just blend in nicely. I don't want to go too mad with them, just a few bits. Drag them across like that. It's just breaking it up a little bit, adding a little bit of interest to it. Also on these, I can see there's some really white bits. So I'm going to clean my brush and I'm going to add some lovely bright bits to this. So there's some really nice bright bits here and here at the back as well. So this is all bringing life to my painting. I can see on the walls then as well, I could have missed a little bit of white on the tops of those. So here we go, just adding a few highlights here. And because I'm kind of using plain white here, but because the paint is still wet, that's okay, because it's just going to blend in. Don't go too mad when you're adding highlights at the end of your painting, because you can destroy it. So here there's some highlights here as well. Just going to go over those. And I can see I missed a little bit of this thatch roof in here, so I'm just going to put that in. There, just making some nice little adjustments at the very end, just to finish off my painting. Okay, so thanks for joining me for the second part of the video, the finished painting. So if you want to take a look at it, it's a nice, easy painting to start off with, you know. So I hope you have fun with it and hope you enjoy painting. And please send in your images to AineDoherty77@gmail.com, and I'll put them up on my Instagram page and my Facebook page. Okay, see you next week. Bye.